My wife texted freedom feels better out here, no rules from her girls' trip. I didn't reply. I just gathered evidence for 4 days and handed her divorce papers the moment she unpacked. I am 33 years old, and I was married to Elena, 32F, for 5 years. We met back in our late 20s when we were both grinding through the early stages of our careers in Seattle. After dating for 2 years, we got married and eventually relocated to Portland, Oregon, settling into what I genuinely believed was a rock-solid, impenetrable partnership. We both worked incredibly demanding corporate jobs. I am an architect, and she is a senior marketing director. We shared the household responsibilities, managed our finances together, and built what looked like a perfectly balanced, enviable life from the outside. We didn't have kids yet. We had talked about it extensively, but we kept putting it off because of promotions, timing, and the perpetual excuse that we just needed 1 more year to get fully settled. About a month ago, Elena announced she was taking a girls' trip out to the coast. 4 days, a long weekend in a rented beach house in Cannon Beach, supposedly to reconnect with 3 of her old college roommates. I honestly didn't think much of it. She had been incredibly stressed at work lately, constantly complaining about her boss, and talking about how desperately she needed a mental break to avoid burnout. I actively encouraged her to go. I told her to have fun, drink too much wine, and just enjoy the time away from the city. She left on a Thursday morning. I remember the exact sequence of events because it replays in my mind like a movie scene. She kissed me goodbye in the kitchen, gave our golden retriever, Barnaby, a long hug, rolled her oversized suitcase out to her SUV, and drove off with a massive, beaming smile on her face. It was entirely normal. Everything seemed perfectly, wonderfully normal. That first day, I got a few sporadic texts. Made it safely to the coast. The beach house is absolutely stunning. Miss you and Barnaby already. It was all standard, expected stuff. I responded with genuine encouragement, told her to relax, and sent her a goofy photo of Barnaby sleeping upside down on the living room rug. Day 2, the texts slowed down significantly. I received just 1 photo of the ocean view from a balcony, with absolutely no caption. I sent back a thumbs-up emoji and a quick, "Looks amazing," figuring she was just deeply engrossed in catching up with her friends and drinking mimosas. I didn't want to be the overbearing husband blowing up her phone. Then came day 3. Saturday evening. I was sitting on the couch watching a basketball game when my phone buzzed. I picked it up and read a text from Elena that made my entire body go completely still. Girls' trip extended, freedom feels better out here, no rules. I sat there and read those 10 words at least 5 times. The phrasing was bizarre. It felt completely out of character. Freedom feels better out here. No rules. What rules? We didn't have rules in our marriage. We had a partnership based on mutual respect and love. What on earth did no rules mean? Was she feeling trapped? Was this a joke meant for someone else? I didn't get angry. I didn't immediately call her frantically or text back demanding a swift explanation. Instead, I just sat in the quiet of our living room and let the silence wash over me. I started thinking about the past 6 months. I thought about how she had been increasingly distant, how she had started going out for networking drinks more often without me, how she had entirely stopped asking about my day when we got home, how our evening conversations had slowly degraded into purely transactional exchanges. Logistics about the mortgage, grocery lists, scheduling vet appointments with absolutely nothing deeper underneath. I suddenly realized, with a sickening drop in my stomach, that I had been willfully ignoring a mountain of red flags because acknowledging them would mean facing a reality I desperately did not want to face. I didn't ask her a single question. I didn't reply to the text. Instead, I did the one thing an ordinary, hopelessly devoted husband would never do. I opened my laptop, researched top-rated family law attorneys in Portland, and sent an inquiry email at 11 p.m. on a Saturday. Update 1. Monday morning arrived. While my wife was presumably still out on the coast enjoying her newly declared freedom, I called my boss, took a personal day, and drove downtown to meet with a divorce attorney named David. I didn't go in there because I had definitively decided to burn my marriage to the ground, but because I am a pragmatic person. I wanted to understand my options, my legal rights, and exactly what the process would look like if the absolute worst-case scenario came to fruition. David was incredibly straightforward, almost clinical. "Has there been infidelity?" he asked within the first 5 minutes. "I don't know," I replied honestly. "Possibly. I just received a very strange text. Do you want to find out? He asked, raising an eyebrow. I want to be prepared, regardless of what the truth is, I said. We talked for 2 solid hours. He explained in excruciating detail how assets would be divided in our state, what potential spousal support might look like, given our income disparity, she actually made slightly more than me, and how the overall timeline worked. Before I left, he handed me a comprehensive checklist of things to document: financial records, property titles, retirement accounts, and evidence of any separate debts versus marital assets. My professional advice, David said as he shook my hand at the door, is to not make any sudden, emotional moves. Go home, gather information, secure your documents, and then decide what you want to do once you have the full picture. I drove home, made a pot of black coffee, and turned my home office into a war room. I started going through all of our finances. I wasn't specifically looking for a smoking gun of an affair. I was just trying to understand our full financial picture like David advised. I logged into our joint accounts, checked our mortgage statements, and looked through our shared digital filing system. That is exactly when I found it. A credit card statement I didn't even know existed. It was a Capital One statement, in her name only, opened roughly 8 months ago. I had never seen a physical piece of mail for it because she clearly had the statements routed to her corporate email address. But we had a shared cloud drive where we dumped important PDFs for tax season, and buried deep inside a subfolder labeled 2021 auto insurance docs was a stray PDF statement from 3 months ago. She must have accidentally saved it there in a rush. I clicked it open, and my blood ran ice cold. There was a current balance of over $12,500. But it wasn't the amount that made me feel physically nauseous. It was the itemized charges. There were massive bills at upscale bars and romantic restaurants I had never stepped foot in. There were multiple charges for Uber rides at 1:00 a.m. on Wednesday nights. And most damning of all, there were 3 separate charges for rooms at the Nines, a luxury boutique hotel in downtown Portland. All of these charges occurred on weekdays, specifically on the nights she had looked me dead in the eye and told me she was working late on a massive marketing campaign or grabbing a quick bite with the girls from the office. I sat at my desk, staring at the glowing screen, feeling a heavy, suffocating weight settle into my chest. This wasn't just a suspicious, drunken text from a girls' trip. This was a calculated, heavily funded, long-term pattern of deception. I took high-resolution screenshots of the statement, downloaded the PDF, saved everything to a brand-new, secure cloud account that only I had the password to, and then put the original file back exactly where I had found it. Once I broke the dam, the water flooded in. I kept digging. I logged into our cell phone provider portal, using the primary account holder credentials. I looked at her text logs. There was one specific number she was texting hundreds of times a week, often late at night, and frequently right before those mysterious hotel charges. Every single discovery was like another heavy brick in a massive wall I was building around my heart. Evidence. Documentation. Protection. By Tuesday evening, I had a digital folder brimming with undeniable information. I still hadn't responded to her Saturday text about extending the trip. She had sent a few more messages since then, asking things like, "Are you okay?" and "Is something wrong at home?" I responded with absolute minimalism. "Fine. Just slammed with a project at work. Have fun." She finally came home late Wednesday night. I heard her SUV pull into the driveway around 11:30 p.m. I heard the familiar click of her unlocking the front door, and the heavy thud of her dragging her suitcase into the foyer. I was sitting in the living room in the dark, the TV playing on mute, just staring at the wall. "Hey," she said, appearing in the doorway, looking slightly sunburned and exhausted. "You're still up. Couldn't sleep," I replied, my voice completely flat. She walked over and tried to lean in for a kiss. "I missed you." I turned my head slightly so her lips caught my cheek. "Did you?" Something in my tone made her freeze. She took a step back, her eyes narrowing. "What's wrong? Why are you acting weird? How was the trip?" I asked, ignoring her question. "It was good, really good. I desperately needed that break." "You extended it," I noticed. "Yeah, we were just having so much fun. We decided to stay a few extra days." "You got my text, right?" "I did," I said, finally turning to look her directly in the eyes. "Freedom feels better out here. No rules." "Very interesting phrasing, Elena." She let out a nervous, dismissive laugh. "Oh, it was just, you know, letting loose. No strict schedules, no household responsibilities, just enjoying being in the moment with the girls." "What rules were you referring to?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. What? You specifically said no rules. What rules were you escaping? I didn't mean. God, it was just a figure of speech. Jesus, why are you interrogating me the second I walk through the door? I'm not interrogating you. I'm asking a simple question about a text you sent your husband. It meant absolutely nothing. I was 3 margaritas deep when I sent it. The girls and I were just joking around. Joking around about freedom from your marriage? I didn't say that, she snapped, her voice rising defensively. You didn't have to. She dropped her purse onto the floor. What the hell is this? I go on one single trip with my college friends, and you're acting like I committed a federal crime? One trip, right? I asked softly. Just this one. What is that supposed to mean? I stood up from the couch. How many late-night marketing meetings have you actually had in the past 8 months, Elena? Her face changed. It was instantaneous. It was microscopic, but I saw it clear as day. A flash of pure, unadulterated terror, followed immediately by guilt, and then masked by forced confusion. I don't know what you're implying, she stammered. I'm not implying a damn thing. I'm asking you directly. How many of those nights you swore you were working late were actually work? All of them. I've been completely swamped with the new Q3 launch. I walked over to the coffee table, picked up a printed piece of paper, and handed it to her. It was the Capital One statement. The charges at the Nines Hotel on this credit card. The card I didn't know existed. Was that work too? All the color drained from her face. She looked like she was going to vomit. She stared at the paper, her hands visibly shaking. You went through my private things? She whispered, trying to pivot to indignation. We are married, Elena. There shouldn't be hidden credit cards with 12 grand in debt. That's different. That is a massive invasion of my privacy. And lying about where you are, who you're with, and draining our potential finances isn't an invasion of our marriage? I fired back, my voice echoing in the quiet house. You have a separate credit card you hid from me. You have charges at luxury hotels and cocktail lounges in the middle of the week. You extended a trip with a text about freedom and no rules. You've been emotionally checked out for 8 months. And you have the absolute audacity to stand there and expect me to believe nothing is going on? She slowly sank onto the edge of the couch, the paper slipping from her fingers onto the floor. She buried her face in her hands. I stood there and waited. The silence was deafening. It's not what you think, she finally choked out, her voice muffled by her hands. Then look at me and tell me exactly what it is. Update 2. She started crying. But it wasn't the crying of someone who was truly remorseful. It was the frantic, hyperventilating crying, designed to make you feel guilty for confronting them. It was a manipulative tactic to make me the bad guy for pressing the issue. I had seen her do it with her parents when she was caught in a lie years ago, but this time, my heart didn't soften. I felt absolutely nothing but cold disgust. I've just been so confused, she sobbed, tears streaming down her face. About us. About what I want out of life. About whether I made the right choices settling down so young. So you've been having an affair, I stated plainly. No, not an affair, just someone I've been talking to. A friend. A friend you meet at luxury hotels in the middle of the night. We haven't done anything physical. I swear to God. We just talked. He listens to me in ways you just don't anymore. It's not romantic. It's just someone who actually gets me. Someone you are meeting secretly, lying to my face about, and charging hotel rooms to a secret credit card for. We only got the hotel room once, she cried, looking up at me with pleading eyes. Because the bar was closing, and we were having a deep conversation and weren't done talking. We just sat on the bed and talked. That's it. I leaned against the wall and just looked at her. I really, truly looked at the woman I had promised to spend my life with. I saw the desperate defensiveness, the pathetic half-truths, the real-time manipulation. Do you honestly think I am stupid? I asked quietly. What? Do you genuinely think I am stupid enough to believe that absolute garbage? It is the truth. You get a luxury hotel room to talk. A hotel room you charge to a secret credit card. And for 8 months of secret meetings and thousands of text messages, you're just talking. Yes. What is his name? That doesn't matter. It matters to me. I'm not telling you. It would just make things worse. Elena, things are already at rock bottom. They literally cannot get much worse than my wife having a secret affair and lying to my face for the better part of a year. It is not an affair. Then what the hell would you call it? She didn't answer. She just curled in on herself and cried harder. I stood up straight. I'm sleeping in the guest room. We will talk more tomorrow when you are ready to stop insulting my intelligence. Where are you going? She panicked, jumping up. I told you, the guest room. Please don't do this. Don't shut me out, she begged, grabbing my arm. I gently but firmly peeled her fingers off my shirt. I'm not shutting you out, Elena. You shut me out 8 months ago when you started this double life. I'm just finally catching up to reality. I walked upstairs, went into the guest room, and locked the door behind me. I lay on top of the covers fully clothed, staring up at the ceiling fan in the dark. I heard her moving around downstairs for hours. I heard her crying in the kitchen. I heard her eventually trudge up the stairs and go into our master bedroom alone. I didn't care. I felt completely hollowed out. The next morning, Thursday, I woke up at 5 a.m. I packed a small duffel bag, took Barnaby, and left the house before she even woke up. I dropped the dog off at my sister's place across town, went to a coffee shop, and then headed straight to work. I kept my phone completely on silent. By noon, she had called me 14 times and sent dozens of frantic texts. I ignored every single one of them. During my lunch break, I walked back to David's law office. She admitted to an emotional affair, I told him, sitting in the leather chair across from his desk. She claims absolutely nothing physical happened, but she's lying through her teeth. David nodded slowly. Do you want to pursue the divorce? I want to be completely ready. I want the loaded gun in my hand so I control the situation. Then we move forward with the paperwork immediately, David said, pulling out a legal pad. We file soon so you control the timeline. Even if you somehow decide to reconcile later, having the paperwork filed gives you massive leverage and protects your assets from further damage by her. Won't dropping papers on her make things infinitely worse? David looked at me with the tired eyes of a man who had seen this 1,000 times. Things are already destroyed. You are simply protecting yourself from the fallout, and we need to address that hidden credit card debt so you aren't held liable for half of her affair expenses. I authorized him to draft the divorce petition. I told him to hold off on officially serving her until I gave the absolute green light, but to have every single document finalized and ready to go. That evening, I came home around 7:30 p.m. The house was dead quiet. Elena was sitting at the kitchen island, looking like a ghost. She had clearly been crying for 24 hours straight. Her eyes were swollen shut. We need to talk, she whispered as I walked in. Okay. I stood on the opposite side of the island. I am so sorry. For all of it. For lying, for the credit card, for the text messages. You're right. I've been incredibly selfish, and I have destroyed you. Okay, I said, my face completely blank. She blinked, confused by my lack of reaction. That's it? Just, okay? What exactly do you want me to say, Elena? You've admitted to lying for nearly a year, having secret relationships, and hiding massive amounts of debt. What response are you expecting? A hug? I want you to yell. I want you to fight for us. I want you to say you want to work on this marriage. Do you want to work on it? Yes. More than anything, then tell me everything. Right now. His name, how you met, when it started, and what exactly has happened. All of it. And I swear to God, Elena, if you hesitate even for a single second, or if I find out later you held one tiny detail back, we are permanently done. This is your one and only chance to be honest. She swallowed hard, looking down at the marble countertop. I could physically see the gears turning in her head, calculating what she had to admit and what she could still get away with hiding. His name is Mark, she finally whispered. He's a vendor for our marketing department. They had started talking at a corporate retreat 8 months ago. It began as friendly banter, then turned into texting, then turned into more. They would meet for drinks after work, which escalated to dinners and eventually to that hotel room at the Nines. She swore, looking me dead in the eye, that nothing physical happened beyond a kiss. One kiss, she cried. That's it. It happened, and it made me realize I had crossed a horrible line, and I stopped it. When was the kiss? 2 weeks ago. Before your girls' trip? Yes. So, let me get this straight. You went on a beautiful coastal trip with your friends, having just kissed another man, and decided you needed to text me about freedom and no rules? She nodded miserably. Was Mark there? I asked, my voice dropping to a whisper. What? On the trip. At the beach house. Was Mark there? No. No, God, no. It was just the girls. I swear to you. You swear? I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Like you swore we didn't have secrets? Like you swore you were working late all those nights? Your swearing means absolutely nothing to me anymore, Elena. She broke down completely. She slid off the bar stool onto her knees, begging me to believe her, begging me to forgive her, begging for a second chance. She promised to cut off all contact with Mark immediately. She promised to quit her job the next morning. She promised to sign a post-nuptial agreement, go to intensive therapy, and do whatever it took to rebuild my trust. I stood there, looking down at my wife sobbing on the kitchen floor, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sympathy, just cold, clinical observation. I need time, I said finally, stepping back from her. Time to think. Time to decide if I even want to attempt to save this train wreck. How much time? She gasped. However long I need. Days. Weeks. Months. Can we at least stay in the same room? Please. I can't stand this physical distance between us. No. I will stay in the guest room until I figure out what I want. This isn't fair, she suddenly cried, a flash of anger returning. I made a terrible mistake, but I am trying to fix it. You didn't make a mistake, Elena, I said coldly. You made dozens of calculated choices over 8 months. You built an entire secondary life. You lied to my face every single day. This is a massive pattern of deception. Don't you dare call it a mistake. So you're just going to punish me forever? I am protecting myself while I figure out if you are even worth the effort of forgiveness. Update 3. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched my wife desperately try to prove herself. And honestly, she pulled out all the stops. She actually quit her high-paying job. She cut off all contact with Mark, showed me his blocked number, deleted all her social media accounts, enrolled in a daily therapy program, and gave me the passwords to every single device and account she owned. She tried to be utterly transparent. She cooked my favorite meals. She left apologetic notes on my car windshield. But it didn't matter. I didn't care. Not really, because I had already made my decision that very first Saturday night when I read the word freedom. Everything that happened since then was just endless confirmation that the woman I married was dead and gone. On a Tuesday morning, exactly 2 weeks after she came back from the coast, I pulled the trigger. While she was at her new therapist appointment, I took the day off. I packed up every single item of mine into a U-Haul I had rented the night before. I packed up Barnaby's toys, his bed, and his food. I moved everything into a short-term apartment I had secretly leased across town. Before I left, I placed my house key on the kitchen counter. Right next to it, I placed the thick manila envelope containing the finalized divorce petition, signed and dated. She called me at 1:15 p.m. She was completely hysterical, screaming into the phone. What are you doing? What is this? We were working on things. I've done everything you asked. You were working on things, Elena, I said calmly through the Bluetooth in my truck. I was deciding. And I have decided. You can't just give up. Not after everything I've sacrificed to fix this. Everything you've sacrificed? I let out a dry laugh. You mean quitting a job you should have quit the moment you started screwing a vendor? Cutting off contact with a man you never should have been involved with in the first place? Those aren't sacrifices, Elena. Those are the bare minimum consequences of your horrific choices. I love you. Doesn't that mean anything to you anymore? Not anymore. You killed whatever love I felt for you when you spent 8 months lying to my face, when you drained our finances to fund your secret dates, and when you texted me about freedom from a trip that was probably just another massive lie. The trip was real. It was just my friends. Maybe. Maybe not. I will never know, because I will literally never be able to trust a single word that comes out of your mouth again. Please. Please don't do this. We can fix this. I know we can. I don't want to fix it. I want out. You're being incredibly cruel, she screamed. I'm being honest, I replied. Something you forgot how to be. I hung up the phone and blocked her number. The next few weeks were an absolute nightmare. She went completely scorched earth. When begging didn't work, she tried to turn the narrative around. She called my family and our mutual friends, crying hysterically, telling them I was abandoning her during a mental health crisis. She tried to claim I was financially abusive and controlling. So, I dropped the nuclear bomb. I sent a mass email to her parents, my parents, and our core friend group. I didn't include insults or name-calling. I simply attached the Capital One statements, highlighting the Nines hotel charges, the screenshots of her text logs, and a brief, polite explanation that I was filing for divorce due to her long-term infidelity. The smear campaign ended overnight. Her own parents called me to apologize. Her friends stopped covering for her. Legally, she tried to make it as painful as possible. Because she had quit her job to save the marriage, her lawyer aggressively pushed for massive spousal support and tried to claim half of my 401k, which I had built primarily before we even met. David, my lawyer, was a shark. He countered with the documented evidence of her marital waste, the $12,500 affair debt. He made it legally clear that her unemployment was completely voluntary and a direct result of her own misconduct. We went back and forth in brutal mediation sessions for 2 months. Eventually, we settled. It was a clean 50-over-50 split of the house equity. She was forced to take on the entirety of her secret credit card debt, and she waived any and all claims to my retirement accounts and spousal support just to get the nightmare over with. 3 months after I left my key on the counter, the divorce was finalized by a judge. Final update. It has now been exactly 6 months since the divorce was finalized. 6 months since the ink dried, and almost a year since that fateful text from the coast that started this entire avalanche. My ex-wife reached out to me last month through a brief email. She asked if I would be willing to meet her for a quick coffee. She said she wanted to talk and to apologize properly, with no expectations. I debated ignoring it, but honestly, a part of me was curious. I agreed to meet her at a neutral Starbucks downtown. When I walked in, she was already sitting in a corner booth. She looked remarkably different. She looked older, or maybe just deeply exhausted. The vibrant, arrogant energy she used to carry was completely gone. She told me she had gotten a new, lower-paying job, was still in intensive therapy, and had moved into a small apartment closer to her parents. I wanted to apologize, she said softly, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup. Really apologize. Not just cry and say I'm sorry to save myself, but actually acknowledge what I did to you. Okay, I said, leaning back in my chair. I betrayed you in the worst possible way, she said, her voice trembling but holding steady. I lied to your face for months. I built an entire secret relationship while pretending everything was perfectly fine at home. I was a coward. She took a deep breath. And I texted you about freedom because I was actively trying to justify leaving you. But I was too weak and cowardly to just be direct about it. I looked at her for a long moment. Were you with Mark on that coastal trip? She looked down at the table. The silence stretched for 10 agonizing seconds. Finally, she nodded. Yes, she whispered. He drove out and met us there at the beach house. My friends knew. They covered for me. I told you it was just the girls because I knew you wouldn't approve. Was the kiss you mentioned the only physical thing that ever happened? No, she said, tears finally spilling over her eyelashes. We had been sleeping together for 3 months before the trip. There it was. The absolute, unvarnished truth. 6 months too late. But at least it was finally spoken out loud. The vindication washed over me, replacing any lingering doubts I might have buried deep down. Thank you for finally telling me the truth, I said quietly. Does it change anything? She asked, looking up with a tiny, pathetic shred of hope in her eyes. No, I replied instantly, but at least I know with absolute certainty that I made the right decision. I regret everything, she sobbed quietly. Not just losing you and losing our home, but what I became. The lying, the cheating, the utter selfishness. I wasn't that person before. I don't know what happened to me. You didn't just happen to become someone else, Elena, I said firmly. You made choices, over and over again, every single day. Small choices that added up to systematically destroying your marriage. I know, and I am so sorry. I appreciate the apology. I really do. But it doesn't change a single thing. We sat there for another hour. The tension had finally evaporated, replaced by a hollow finality. She asked about my life, and I gave vague, polite answers. She told me about her therapy breakthroughs and what she was learning about her deep-seated need for validation. I listened without an ounce of emotion. When we finally stood up to leave, she walked with me to the parking lot. She hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged me. I let her, but I kept my arms strictly at my sides. I didn't hug her back. I watched her walk to her sedan, start the engine, and drive away, disappearing from my life for good. I don't hate her anymore. I don't sit around wishing terrible things upon her, but I also genuinely do not care what happens to her. She is just a stranger I used to know. Someone who taught me the brutal lesson that trust, once completely shattered, cannot be glued back together. It can only be replaced by something entirely different. I am dating someone new now. Nothing incredibly serious yet, but it's wonderful. Her name is Claire. She is straightforward, fiercely honest, and doesn't play manipulative games. When she says she is somewhere, she is actually there. When she makes plans, she keeps them. Basic, fundamental things, but after surviving my ex-wife, they feel absolutely revolutionary. Looking back at that text, freedom feels better out here, no rules. I realize it was the single most honest thing Elena had said to me in nearly a year. She truly wanted freedom. She wanted freedom from our marriage, from the heavy commitment, from accountability, and from me, and I gave it to her, just not in the way she ever planned. When she came back from the coast, fully ready to continue the comfortable double life she had built, she found that the first apology wasn't to me. It was her own terrible decision. Because by the time she walked through that front door, I had already set the entire machine in motion. The lawyer, the financial documentation, the exit plan. By then, it was already way too late. She wanted freedom, and she got exactly that, along with a stack of divorce papers, a brutal split of assets, $12,500 in credit card debt, and the heavy, crushing consequences of 8 months of lies. I am 33 years old. I am happily divorced. I have my dog, my peace of mind, and my self-respect. I am dating again. And I am free, too. Free from a woman who saw our vows as a cage instead of a partnership. She thought no rules meant she could do whatever she wanted without consequence. It turned out the rules of reality still applied. She just didn't like what happened when she finally broke them.